people know that the teenage drivers, the first-time drivers, are inferior. So statistically, they are three times have 3 times higher accident rate than older drivers,
Interesting.
experienced drivers, just 3 times higher.
Yeah.
So if your full self-driving system was 10 times worse, right? Then that's 2 levels of teenage drivers to average driver to better driver, right?
Yeah.
That 10 times is I've gone from a teenage driver to, a driver who's in the top 10% of human drivers, right?
Yeah.
But I've gone from worse than average, 3 times worse than
Yeah.
average to 3 times better than average, right?
Uh,
So from us in terms of the experience of like, we know that when we're riding with the teenage driver, we're feeling super nervous, they're very dangerous, all that kind of stuff. And then with an average driver, okay, things are relatively okay, but not great. And then you have the professional taxi driver, chauffeur, who's the better driver, right?
right.
You think, okay, this is really fantastic. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Next Big Future. Today, I'm going to discuss that Tesla has misnamed their full self-driving product. Their naming convention using different versions is wrong, and that is confusing people, including various Tesla bulls. And that also is making people analyze things incorrectly about FSD and robotaxi. With me to join me in the discussion is Randy Kirk, who has his own YouTube channel. Hey, Randy.
Hey, yeah, you've just gotten back from a nice vacation in Asia. So your brain is probably, I know after I get back from vacation, my brain is exploding.
Yeah.
So you have a unique proposition today. You haven't even told me the details yet. So I'm
Yeah.
kind of excited to hear about it.
So we have full self-driving Tesla FSD, and we've had this numerical naming convention, FSD 10, FSD 11, FSD 10.1, 11.1, and then now we have 12, 12.36, and now 12.41, 12.42, right? So we know that 12.4 is supposed to be a lot better than 12.3, right? And it was a large improvement from the version 11. I'll go over some of the details of those numbers first to get a sense of what it is. But the main point is that Elon has said that 12.4 will have 10 times the miles between disengagements.
Right.
So 12.36 was in the range of 200, 300 miles
Okay.
per disengagement. So you intervene, you say, okay, I don't like what it's doing. I can take over as a human driver for full self-driving. And Elon says, 5 to 10 times more. So that means going up to at least 1,000 miles and maybe up to 4,000 miles between when you need to take over from the system. Where you say, okay, it made a mistake, it still got confused, or it has to take over. And then 12.5 is supposed to be another step up, maybe 5, 10 times more. And that gets into the range of 17,000 miles per disengagement, which is what the Waymo system does. The Google Waymo created a robotaxi, no human driver, although no human driver in the system, but they're doing remote people
Right.
coming in to check stuff. Is that normal humans drive their cars about 15,000 miles per year. So the difference between 15,000, 17,000 miles is like one disengagement a year of driving versus one a week or one a day.
Right.
So that's the kind of difference that we're talking about here. And my argument is that if you say 12.3 is at 200 to 300 miles, and then 12.5 is at 10,000 miles, having just a number system saying that this is 100 times better, you're not talking about the same product anymore, right?
I see.
Right? Because right now, this separation is, okay, autopilot, just driver assist. FSD means it's driving for me, full self-driving, but I'm still behind the wheel until they take over. And then there's robotaxi, which doesn't exist yet, but which would, at least for Tesla, we should take the human driver out, right? Those are two course, a way of measuring things, right? Because within that, there is this huge variance, a capability between I have a problem once a day, once a drive versus once a week, which may be where we're at now, 12.4, according to some whole Mars um, tests. And then getting up to once a year, where we may be with 12.6 and getting to Waymo level and probably going beyond, right?
And are you thinking as a marketer here then with regard to the consumer? So we've had these interesting levels that people have put out, like it's good enough for me, and then it's good enough for my spouse, and then it's good enough for my mother-in-law, and then it's good enough for. I mean, so are you looking at levels of consumer in willingness to purchase as you're naming kind of the way why you want to name it differently?
Yeah, I think it's related to having different things so the consumer knows the difference, right?
Got it.
And it has to be non-arbitrary, right?
Uh-huh.
And then it also has to be one the consumer need to understand it, but also the financial impact for stock analysts.
Oh, okay.
This is not the same, right? So I my analogy is that in the early days, 1980s or so, people get on the internet with dial-up modem.
Right.
People who weren't alive at that point or don't remember, you'd have a landline phone dialing in. You'd have this modem device that would connect you to the internet. It would do it at what they called 300 baud, or something like that, and it would have this 1 minute startup time, where it's like you would do the phone, dee, 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 phone dial in, and then beep beep, and they would do the tone. They would then connect. It would
And in
take
the
about
very
10 minutes.
and in the very early days, it was like, except it was busy part of the time. And so
Right.
you go through this entire process that would take like 2 minutes, and you get beep beep, you get a busy signal, and do it again, do it again. It was just like a lottery to see if you could even get on.
Right, right. So it would take 2 minutes and sometimes even like 10 minutes to
Right.
get onto the internet. So I couldn't like check stuff. And also, everything when the visual, all that kind of stuff. And then you got cable modems. Well, there was ISDN lines, which are full digital lines. You had cable modems, DSL, which are all instant on, right?
Right.
And also far higher speed, 10 times, 20 times, 100 times, 1,000 times better speed, right?
Right.
10,000 times better speed. So there were all internet connections,
Right.
right? But it was the experience was vastly different,
Right.
right? One, the faster speeds meant I could have graphics instead of just text. I could have video. It was entirely different, right?
Right.
And so that is what I'm saying. The same thing for FSD is that it's like the range from dial-up modem to a digital line to super high speed, whatever, is the kind of stuff that we're talking about, right? And the range of the digital connection lines, which is the FSD part of this map, is something that is it's not the same at a error prone 3,000, 3,000 bytes per minute thing versus, or per second versus 10 million, right? It's like I'm not buying the same product anymore.
Right. Right. Oh yeah. I mean, come on now. It's very clear that if you are, I mean, my own experience, I'm currently not using it. My wife uses it every day, but I still haven't gotten back to using it because I only drive about 30 miles a week, and so for me, it's kind of like, oh, if I go into this, I'm actually doing something new practically. It's almost like when you get your next version of your computer program, or whatever, your next, upgrade. And it's like, okay, do I really want to do this upgrade?
Mhm.
As compared to if it was operating 100%, there was no nag, it would do everything, and I knew it would do everything. Well, then it would be a no-brainer. You just get in and push your location and go. That's a big, big difference.
Right, right. So let me show some slides here. Just people know that the teenage drivers, the first-time drivers, are inferior. So statistically, they are have 3 times higher accident rate than older drivers, experienced drivers.
Yeah.
So just a 3 times higher.
Yeah.
So if your full self-driving system was 10 times worse, right? Then that's 2 levels of teenage drivers to average driver to better driver, right?
Yeah.
That 10 times is I've gone from a teenage driver to, a driver who's in the top 10% of human drivers, right?
Yeah.
I've gone from, you know, worse than average, 3 times worse than average,
Yeah.
to average, to 3 times better than average, right?
Uh,
So from us, in terms of the experience of like, we know that when we're riding with the teenage driver, we're feeling super nervous, they're very dangerous, all that kind of stuff. And then with an average driver, okay, things are relatively okay, not great. And then you have the professional taxi driver, chauffeur, who's the better driver, right?
right.
You think, okay, this is really fantastic, I don't worry about it at all, kind of thing, right? And so that perception difference is because we're going from an artificial system, we're spanning that, could go from that from like 12 point or 11 was at the teenage driver level, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then 12.3, now we're kind of at the human driver level where we're feeling confident. Although it's not 12.3 is not quite there because 12.3 doesn't let you do reverse. So it's like
Right.
you're a human driver and you can't go into reverse. It's like you're not a human driver, right? So 12.4, I'm not sure if that does reverse yet or not, but 12.4, 12.5 will do reverse. So be feature complete, able to do, recognize hand signals, do all that stuff. So then fully better than human or as good as human in every way, and then getting to better, right?
Yeah. And so the 12.4, though, I'm only going to disagree with you a little bit. I think the 12.4 or 12.5 or whatever level it will be, you would have to figure, you have to get to the place where an intervention is an oddity.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're going to be super attentive all the time. Now, people have argued the opposite, that if it gets to the place where a intervention is an oddity, but you could still have a safety problem occasionally, that you might get too relaxed and not be attentive, even when this car is still capable of doing something really stupid.
Right. So this goes to what levels really matter.
Right.
So we have level 1, level 2, level 3, this
Oh, yes.
SAE system of that, which basically means that, but it's too broad. It's like,
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
it helps me at level 2, at level 3, it's helps me, but it's not restricted in regions, and 12.4, I can remove the driver. So it's like these huge leaps. And
Right.
also like the 2 versus 3 is kind of like, what does it mean I can do some areas but not other areas? It's related to the fact that Waymo and them have done a hardware approach with radar and lidar,
Right.
where they're dependent upon hyper mapping.
Right.
So thus they're location constrained, which is not the situation with Tesla.
Right.
So the nature of those definitions are related to, one, I'm defining something before I got there.
Yeah.
So, but now we're kind of in it. So now we know the difference between here and there, right?
Right.
Between 400 miles and 4,000 miles, and doing everywhere and feature complete and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Right? So now that we're in it, we can have new definitions and also new marketing related to what can this thing actually do.
Right.
Right.
Wow.
And also the fact that we're going to span the human range from teenage driver to professional driver, possibly within these point releases, going from 12.4 to 12.5, 12.6.
Right.
So that by August 8th, suddenly we're at the level of
professional
driver, able to reverse, don't have to touch the wheel, everything, right?
Yeah.
So then it's not the same product. So then this also goes to the stock analysis. Like I've watched some of our friends, Herbert and others talk about, when does the stock price go back to the all-time highs and stuff like that. And then they're talking, and Larry Goldberg was saying, oh, well, it's, one has to show up in the financials, and then it has to, and it'll be a year, 2 years, something like that, middle of next year, all this kind of thing. But that's not related to the fact that it is all dependent upon how good is 12.4.
Right.
Call it like, is it the fully human beyond human level FSD? Is it, is it professional driver
Right.
FSD, right? Is
Uh-huh.
it beyond professional driver FSD,
Mhm.
right? So that goes to, safety ranges and actual 5x, 10x safety. That if you
Yeah.
have these statistics of that, then you need to say, here's what I'm talking about, like, and comparing it to human level drivers, right?
Yeah.
And the experience I'm getting. So it's a couple of things that gets more complicated around the marketing aspect of it. But it's if for the analysis aspect of how much attachment rate and stuff like that is, then we can say if it gets feature complete and it's at 5,000 miles or 20,000 miles and beyond, right? Clear levels of statistical capability, right? Then we can go to the benchmarking. This is done by Cruz with a study from a bunch of universities. Of course, Cruz's numbers seem to have been misleading.
Right.
That they had supposedly some of the best numbers around it, but they were doing it with remote drivers. Also, they um, the kind of accidents and issues that they had, where they like hit a person and then the car then dragged the person
Right.
40 feet well, underneath the car. It was, mistakes that aren't kind of captured in these kind of statistics. But they did say that they were, again, better than human ride hailing situations. Autopilot has statistics where they're safer than human when it's engaged, versus that. But these, again, there's some problem with these statistics. So you need some measurement where it gets to that full level. Sorting out these measurement things is, if things happen as quickly as we expect, won't matter. One, they're not going to change the marketing
Right.
up to that, and two, that if we are hopping from 12.4 to 1.5 to 1.6 over the course of 2 3 months, right? Then we're blowing through all these naming things like whatever. We're getting to the promised land of better than human level. So
Yeah. I mean, 8.8 is only 50 days away.
right, only 80 or 50 days away, right? And we should have at least 12.5
Yeah.
at that point, right? Which, 12.4 with the point release sorts out to 5, 10 times better. And then 12.5 comes out, it's sorting out, get to 10 times better. We get it 100 times better. So if we're there, or we're there a month or two later, because we're getting these leaps in taking about
Right.
a month based on how fast the supercomputers are working, right? Then any discussion of like, where are we at financially and whatever should be assuming that we get to 100 times better in the August to October timeframe, right? So, and then here's the comparison to autopilot. So then we can blow out all these things, and the comparison between 1011 with it, 1011 was from like in the bottom chart, city distance to critical engagement. The tens were at the 50, 10, 12 got up to 100, and then 11s were at the 100 miles per disengagement, and then went down, and then we got to 200, 300 for the 12.3 level. So comparing this to human and versus China ADAS is that the China driving systems is that the China guys say that there are about 11 equivalent,
Mm.
right? So this is analysis by, some technical university people over in China saying that our systems are about Tesla 11. So they're acknowledging that the version 12 is 2 to 3 times better than what they have.
Let's see.
And
Okay.
so the version 12 have gone to next level capability because Tesla was working on 1011 for like 2 3 years, right? And then making moderate but minimal progress
Right.
the hand coding thing. And now we've gone to this neural net approach, which is broken out, right? So, and then if it doesn't have this cap, where if what Elon is saying is true, that 12.4 to 1.5 is 10 times better than 100 times better, then the others have to get to the breakthrough, right? All your hard work, even with whatever systems, you're messing around the 10, 11, you're stuck
Yeah.
below the
Yeah.
breakout, right? So then we get to the breakout level, and then if we're 100 times better, then the value of FSD in 2, 3 months, right, with a system that is able to reverse, no touch, like doing everything that you would want a good professional chauffeur to do, where you trust the system because it is trustworthy because it's not having problems, you know, once a year or something like that, right?
Right.
Then the issue of like, how attentive do you have to be is that, it's safer than you.
Right.
So
So let me see if I'm catching up with you, making sure that I don't fall too far behind.
yeah,
So we've got 50 days till 8/8.
yeah.
In that 50 days, we're probably going to roll out to everybody 12.4.2 or 3, whatever they decide, wherever they figure that this 12.4 system is good enough to send out to the entire group. Then we'll have a bunch of videos coming out of that. And so people will be able to see that, in fact, you don't have to touch the wheel anymore, that, in fact, it has reverse, all the things that we're hoping we're going to see in 12.4 are 12. Then we have the next step, which is 12.5, which maybe theoretically takes care of all the rest of the maybe 8 or 10 things that the car cannot even do now, a K turn, hand signals, etc. Summon, there's about 10 things I think that most people are thinking of that the car just can't do. So at each of those steps, Wall Street, you're saying, not just the consumer, but Wall Street would be able to see these videos. They're not going to be stupid. They're not going to continue to be completely outside the loop on this because they can't totally miss it. They would look too foolish. So they'll be watching the videos, they'll be watching the stats. Potentially, we might even see in China these 10 vehicles in the one location and a multiple number of vehicles in another location starting to actually run actual cybercab, or whatever you want to call it now, vehicles being used in real life. That can't be ignored. And we'll get the stats out of Tesla between now and the 8th, including on the 8th. So between now and the 8th, everybody that's paying attention should have a very realistic idea that this is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Is that kind of what you're saying?
So yes, that's kind of what I'm saying, but it'll be simpler than that.
Okay.
Because it's like people are being offered dial-up modem now.
Okay.
And so you have, 10% or whatever, or you have the early versions of ISDN, right? And which is twice as fast or 5 times faster, but it's still, has some bugs and that kind of stuff. And then you get to cable modem, 10 times, 100 times faster, right? So I'm saying that we'll have the cable modem product of full self-driving in 12.6, right? Or 12.5 late. And it'll happen in the August to October timeframe of getting fully released. Based on the stuff, it seems to be taking a bit longer. Let's assume October, right? So that means, yes, the people who are paying attention, so Hallmark, everyone will see, oh, holy crap, it's here.
Yeah.
Right? But the main thing would be that when Tesla then gives another 1 month, 2 month free trial to everyone of you. You guys tried 12.2 or 12.3 before, now try 12.6, right?
Right.
And so then when you say, we went from dial-up modem to the real deal now, right? So then the adoption rate goes crazy. And then also the Chinese car companies, Ford, who are trying out the system and saying, should I license this thing?
Yes.
Go from, should I license dial-up modem to should I license cable modem, right? And then everyone else is stuck at dial-up modem or less because they said that they were. China ADAS, all those people are at that lower level, right? So now we've gone to this 100 times better. So right, we're at 2-3 times better than everyone else. And it's like, okay, it seemed to be a pretty big deal. But that 2-3 times better is still that gap between student driver and regular person, right? And so sometimes it'd be tough to tell between decent student driver versus
Right.
the average human driver, right?
Right.
But the difference between that and, NASCAR driver, professional
Right.
driver,
Right.
then you
Big.
start, it's a big, right? So it becomes this readily apparent thing. And then, so then the attack, people say, like, I give it a 10% attachment rate, it'll go from 2% to 10%. And it's like, no, it's going to go to like 50%, right? It's going to be way safer than human. Even just the insurance stuff would go from, accidents dropping 10 times.
Yeah.
Then I can, if you have it on, then, the insurance should be way less. So we just get into a different world, even though it's not robotaxi per se, because we haven't gone through the regulatory hurdles of removing the human driver, but we're fully capable of doing it. We're just not at that regulatory level, right?
Wouldn't almost the most obvious thing that would say that we've made that complete flip be that there just wouldn't be anybody on YouTube saying that they're having any interventions? I mean,
Right.
wouldn't it be like every single YouTube driver says, I just went, 100 miles with no interventions, and not one of them is saying, what are you guys talking about? I'm still getting intervention. I mean, if you have none, zero zip.
Um, there'll still be some, because there'll be, I think, the Nano Dows of the world making stuff up.
Well, okay, but the Dano does. He's nobody pays any attention to
But
Dan.
yeah, but no one honest
Yeah.
would then be
Right.
being stuff, right?
Right.
Basically, you want and be, or maybe be one.
Right.
Oh, it's a rare thing. I had some problem because I got 100 drivers, and I drive 100 miles over or 200 miles over a week.
Right.
20,000, then you expect one.
Right.
So yeah, you go from like a lot to down to one. So that's what we would see, right? But
But
then
also, you would also start having a lot of my favorite thing, which is referrals, or you would have a lot of people who aren't on YouTube, and they found out that the thing is better, and so they can have a 2-week trial, and they do the 2-week trial. They tell their friend that has it. I mean, I've got 7 people in my neighborhood who have Teslas. So you get to the point where you ought to try it again. It's really great now. You would have this kind of word of mouth thing taking
right, right, the viral word of mouth thing
Right.
would be there.
Right.
Yes, where basically it's where something is clearly superior. It's like that, fantastic, movie, right? The
Or
Matrix.
the GPT moment.
Yeah, yeah, that GPT moment where it's like, okay, yeah, you gotta try GPT. Like where normal people at a party say, hey, you gotta try this GPT thing. Let me try it for you. So that kind of virality would happen, right? Where it's like, who it goes, because right now it goes, yeah, I tried, didn't like it. And I think it goes from that to it is clearly better, right? And does that not because of marketing convincing, because it actually does happen, right? Okay, 12.5 is the S, and basically, everyone loves it, right? So that can happen. That can happen on the August 8th thing. So, but the financial impact and why it rips the stock is that the Chinese car makers, who are all putting in their ADAS system, and they have like 10 or whatever robotaxi companies, and the biggest one being arguably the biggest one being BYD Apollo,
Right.
which should have over 1,000 robotaxis by this year, and that's in their current system. So they were planning to go to like 5,000 next year in 60 cities, versus Waymo with 500 in 4 cities. And so then they could then, if they adopt Tesla, which their head of self-driving systems said, if it's there, I'll use it, and we'll do it, right? So then that happens, then they can say, okay, we can have 50,000, 100,000 robotaxis in 200. There's 800 cities in China. They can do 800 cities by the end of next year, right? So yeah.
So you also you may have noticed this morning that the CEO of Xpeng said that if I'm pronouncing it right, Xpeng, that he is in the United States. He has tested FSD, and he's planning to do more testing of FSD while he's here.
Right. Right. So I have talked to a VC who funded Xpeng.
Oh, okay.
And he said that the CEO of Xpeng is a super CEO, super hardworking. Before he he more of a hands-on entrepreneur in the mold of Elon Musk, and they test out everything. Same thing for Xiaomi, where basically they test everything. They're not like a CEO of GM or something like that.
Right.
Hand off, like they're hardcore into all these systems. So they will, as engineering CEO entrepreneurs, try it, and if it's better, then they will adopt it. So again, that goes to, as the product is there, a fully available 12.4, 12.5,
Right.
um, the licensing will happen. So good.
Yeah,
Go
so
ahead.
you get the licensing, but the other one that nobody talks about. I've said this a couple of months ago, and I'm going to stick by it. I think the car sales go through the roof.
Yes,
The Model X's, Model 3s, all of a sudden, you're not going to be able to get them again. It's going to be, long lines of people waiting to get the new car because now, again, the word of mouth will be, this works now.
that's right. So the demand will skyrocket for the regular cars. Also, because if the licensing deal happens, then the only available FSD system until you get the new model 2.5, which could start later this year at Q4 or Q1 next year. But if you say I want to do stuff now, or I want to make sure I have those vehicles, then you have to buy Model 3 and Model Y, right? And then maybe Cybertruck if they get 12.4 because they with Cybertruck. So, but the existing Tesla vehicles have to be the ones. So then, um, if I'm Apollo and I want to get 100,000 robotaxis or 200,000 robotaxis next year, I got to buy Model 3 and Model Y. And so then the Tesla factory in Shanghai, instead of running at a slightly lower rate, one shift off or something like that, making 900,000 cars a year, they can go full shift 1.2 million, 1.4 million by pushing their lines of production up to the mass level. That extra 600,000 cars goes into all the robotaxi licensed partners.
Sure.
And then they go to 800 cities because it's Apollo, it's Auto X, it's Didi. There's like a bunch of makers over there, and they got the billions of dollars needed to do it. And also, they're already spending $2 billion a year, losing $2 billion a year, making this stuff into like the software. If they say, okay, your thing works, I can start making the money. Fine, I give you half, but of the money that we're making because we're doing all these rides. But I'm shutting down my $2 billion a year losses.
Yeah.
Right. So the fact that, now I'm starting to make money because they were saying, okay, I'm going to make money. BYD Apollo says we're going to go profitable next year, even without Tesla. We were going to go profitable. Their plan was to go to like 5,000 robotaxis, giving a lot of rides.
Right.
So they then be hyper profitable if they have 100,000 Teslas going everywhere, right? Doing all the rides. And the fact that they might have drivers initially, they won't care because their current robotaxi has like 80%, 90% still with drivers, right? But the economic model there will become profitable.
Let me add something to your theory that you may or may not have heard the other night, which I thought was a real breakthrough in thinking, which was from Nicholas Gibbs. He said, "I think that once we're feature complete, you could roll out Cybercab now. That basically, it's as safe or safer than Waymo, and Waymo is restricted to." Certain geographies, and Tesla is not. Right. And so you could literally, if you are feature complete, so that you don't have any of these things that it cannot do, like reverse, that you could put it out right now, and the regulators should be happy with it because it's actually provably safer than a Waymo.
Yes, I agree that could happen, but I would say that they would have a safety driver period. Even if it was safer, you would want to run it for 6 months. But that transition phase is irrelevant, right? Because the extra cost of those drivers, okay, I'm still giving the rides, but it's, I'm still Uber in terms of like, Uber having 7 million drivers and stuff like that. I'm still at that level making $30 million a year versus $5 million a year, $10 million a year that the current robotaxis like Waymo and stuff are doing, right? They're doing virtually nothing, right?
Right.
So going to really billion the dollars, and then how you split it up is the pie is so big that I'm willing to do it, right? And for Tesla to say yes, I will. Why don't Tesla just go by themselves? Which is what some people are saying. It's like the licenses of Chinese cities
Sure.
is already with BYD,
Right.
DD, all AutoX, all those other, We Ride, companies in China, right? So you need some partners anyway. Either your own
Right.
um, owners, Tesla owners,
Right.
or someone. So the fact that you're getting that split and you're getting, 10 billion, $100 billion worth of rides out there, you want to get to that point where we're getting $100 billion, $200 billion worth of rides, $1 trillion worth of rides.
So if I was to summarize, because I think we went kind of around the block a little bit.
Yeah.
If we were to summarize this, we'd be looking at number one, we'd be having almost no YouTube videos coming out that were showing any kind of interruptions. They'd be saying, no, it's 100%, 100%. Everybody would just be going, look, it just works. And you only have the rarest YouTube video that might be trying to prove something that was showing any kind of interruptions. Then you would have the next level would be your FSD take rate would go up dramatically. Now, we might not see that until the December earnings call or the January earnings call, unless they made a special deal at 8.8 or they had even some other special X post or something that talk about the take rates being dramatically up. Then you would begin to see car sales increase. It wouldn't be invisible. It would be a very visible thing. Nobody'd have to say anything because there's lots of people reporting on car sales on a week-to-week, even day-to-day basis. So you see these car sales kind of exploding as people try to get in on the deal, get in on the opportunity, even in terms of future robotaxi income. Then you'd have the Chinese licensing people coming in and saying, okay, we want a license. That would be headlines everywhere.
Yep.
Those licensing agreements in China would almost certainly create a potential gold rush in terms of Ford, General Motors, Volkswagen, Mercedes, et cetera, also having to think maybe we need to license this deal where maybe they're not feeling all that much pressure right now, but a couple of Chinese licenses would certainly put the pressure on them. And then would be any kind of announcement in terms of when the cyber cabs would be literally on the streets and producing revenue. Is that
Right.
kind of?
Yeah, the one other thing would be that I'm expecting that the robotaxi companies in China
Yeah.
would
buy the cars.
buy and license the system.
Yeah.
They would announce or actually deploy. I
Yes.
think, as Nicholas was talking about, I see that they would deploy with safety drivers
Right.
at the tens of thousands of levels,
Right.
and rapidly to 100,000 or more. They would probably say, by next year, 100,000, right? Because they had plans to do that by 2030 or earlier, and so they'll just accelerate that. They would get the human drivers to do it, and they would then have probably like 100 plus cities with tests.
Yes.
And with some duplication, like 10 of the companies in Shanghai,
Right.
doing 100 or 500 cars,
Right.
each 100 in Beijing. So they would be multiple ones all over, and they would and that would also gather the data that Tesla needs to prove to regulators that it works, and then be a question of like starting the avalanche of other cities, Florida, San Francisco, wherever, also choosing Arizona, choosing to do it in the United States. So it would be a avalanche wave of that. So the licensing deal, and for the stock, it would be just like when we had the stock ripped to 300 based off of these charging network. It'd be capitulation of the other alternatives,
Right.
and it would also be, but this time be actual revenue, a lot of actual revenue.
Right. Right.
Because if I have fully utilized um, a robotaxi in cities
Right.
and I'm paying for a decent ride, yes, the rides are far cheaper in China, right?
Mhm.
But their cumulative ride hailing market is bigger
Oh yeah.
than the United States.
Hey, if I'm making a penny a mile in China, but I'm making 50 cents a mile in the United States, what do I care? The
Right,
numbers will be so big. It's kind of like, the grocery store has never made any money on soup, okay?
right,
They still don't make any money on soup.
right, right. And the point would be that we're rapidly getting to the full deal of
Yeah,
complete robotaxi and
all
uh,
the data.
and robo trucking, and it'd be having millions of cars doing it, right? The fact that people will be looking at it, oh well, your current earnings aren't as great. You only made, $2 billion, whatever. The in your face, we're getting to the full ARK Invest scenario of million of the cars, million of the trucks. I also think the trucks is more important. That would then become the ARK Invest scenario. Instead of going that, I put that at 2% or whatever in my valuation model, or I put it 0.
Yeah,
It goes to, I got to give it 50%. I got to pick the year it's
right.
happening, right? It's like I'm not. It's no longer the only question becomes when,
Yes.
right? Is it going to be next year? Is it going to be 2027? Right? But it'll become obviously apparent that it's going to be there. So then the $2,000 per stock scenario goes from only one ARK Invest believing it to everyone saying, okay, it is going to happen. And I see the numbers here, where it's like, I can see the growth rate happening. I can see all the licensing deals happen. And so I must put numbers on these things, and I must put double digit percentages that it's going to happen,
Right.
right? So that goes to, our $180 share now plus nothing currently to plus 10% of $2,000, so $200, so it's $400 to 40% of $2,000 to $800. So you get that premium add on, and then the actual quarter after quarter, huge billions of dollars being added on,
That too.
because FSD attachment rate is the profit from FSD of a sale is equal to the profit of a car.
Yes.
The profit of a subscription is the profit of a car in 5 years.
Yes.
So if I make 40% attachment rate, or 40% of the current cars of the US and China, that's 4 million cars. So if I do 40% of that, that's 1.6 million. So it's the equivalent of 1.6 million sales, or 1.6 million sales over 5 years in terms of profit, right?
And then
So
the same thing, and then every year after.
every year thereafter, right? So the profit hit again is clear and apparent with really large attachment rates.
Right.
And also the whole margin thing is like every 21,000 FSD things adds another percent to the margin. So if we get, 210,000, then that's 10% more to margin. And then the whole transformation of the PE goes to that we're an AI company. That there's no denying it. Yeah.
So now, coming back to your original idea, you said that the problem is the naming convention.
Mhm.
So have you come up with a name for the new version?
Um,
So you have to go back to the marketing department now and see if they can come up with a name, huh?
um, One is what would be maybe professional FSD. Maybe it needs to be um,
Is there any famous chauffeurs? What was the guy in the chauffeur in the one oh anyway, there must be some famous chauffeurs or something. Yeah, but we have to have a brainstorming session to come up with that branding.
yeah. I don't think enough people have watched like the Formula One
Oh
um,
yeah, yeah,
driving thing that with Nicky Lauda. Some of the
yeah.
really good YouTube videos and like that. So the Nicky Lauda version of FSD or something like that, or what's another
Famous race car driver. Yeah.
famous race car driver.
Famous driver.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But basically, yeah, it becomes, that basically it's like if you have an AI and it's okay, it's above Einstein, right? So
Yeah.
we're at FSD beyond, whoever famous, I'm trying to think of any other famous human drivers. Unfortunately, the one I think about are ones that are, stunt drivers, like Evil Knievel, and you don't want to associate
I
with.
don't want to use that.
But again, that's dating
There's
me.
no bad ideas, but there's no bad ideas. But that might be close.
Yeah, but professional driver. So basically, like you know, Formula One FSD or
Yeah. Yeah. Formula One. There you go. Yeah.
but you have to do the deal with NASCAR. And
Right. 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 All
okay,
right. Yeah. Very cool. Very cool.
so we'll see. It should happen over the next 50 days. That a lot of this should happen, and then before the end of the year, the financial impacts would be there. And then if it is, then we're beyond all-time highs before the end of the year. So that was something that the other YouTubers, Tesla YouTubers were asking, when do we get back to that? And then basically, all licensing deal happened, and then the huge profits from FSD happen, and then we get to a rapid march to the ARK Invest thing, where the ARK Invest scenarios, instead of being 5 years from now, and are 2, 3 years from now.
Yeah, well, I think ARC would tell you that the day that robotaxi happens, their number becomes in play.
Right.
Doesn't mean the next day, but I mean, in other words, the number, they're not saying that it'll be 2027. If the rollout starts now, it'll take to 2027 to get to that number. They're saying right now they're figuring that maybe the rollout might be 2026. Therefore, it'll be 2027 before we see the number.
Right. But I think that's why I think that the Chinese rollout of robotaxi, at scale, which I think can happen if 12.5 is as good as claimed, 5.6. And the thing is, those 12.5, 12.6, 13, whatever the numbers are, it should be every month or two that we're getting to those next levels. So then shooting up and climbing that mountain of capability should rapidly get to the point where it's clearly better than human, clearly more comfortable, and that's something that everyone would want. Like, I'm not paying for a student driver to drive my car.
No.
But I'm paying for a chauffeur to drive. Right. So chauffeur level FSD. Right. We'll talk later on other topics. I think we've covered this one. So people should like and subscribe, follow Randy on YouTube, and follow Next Big Future and my website. So thank you, and we'll talk next time.